Welcome to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
Episode 8, which training collar is best? So with that being said, starting dogs young, that's a very valid reason. And here's another one. When you start a dog younger, and I would also couple this with start them young and do a full-on obedience program.
And proper training.
You're right. Training. Don't be one of those people that like buys the collar and just puts it on and treats it like a collar. I've seen, as in treats it as a regular collar. I've seen way too many people
put tags on their training collar or put tags on their prong collar.
Yeah, or but what really gets me is people I know you've seen it because I think it's the same person that we're talking about, but who put a prong on their dog and just left it on like it was a training, like a regular collar rather. It was loose enough to be like a collar and it was just on. Yeah. And we're like, does this thing ever come off? And we take it off and the skin under there was all nasty and it was I see people walking their dog with a prong collar, but the dog is pulling as if it was anything else. And, I can't stress it enough. Make sure that you do the work. But to get back to the young dog thing, do the work when they're young and work them with the collars when they're young, when they're minimally, willing to like push back and they're just in a kind of more compliant, more happy-go-lucky, food drivey place so that the sort of like bell curve of learning how to yield to leash pressure is as smooth as possible. Because like we talked about last time, the Lima still applies to balance training, and we don't want working with the training collar to be harsh in any way. It's definitely beneficial for dogs to understand the importance of yielding to leash pressure, but that doesn't need to be a negative thing. Dogs can have lots of fun working with the leash, and I think it's the job of a good trainer. I think Michael Ellis does a really good job of it. Your guy Tyler Muto does a really nice job of this. You do a really good job of this too, of working leash pressure with dogs, but finding the nice balance of food too, and play and praise too. That when you're pressuring a dog with with a certain thing because you want them to learn how to perform under pressure because it's a helpful skill, the dogs can enjoy this. It's a funny thing that people. It's a like hard thing, I guess, for some people to like understand until you see it, and then it's and then you realize it's not what you might think it is.
Right. And just those of you who are listening, whether they be young dog trainers who don't know about it or dog owners who don't know about this either, leash pressure work or fix it or reversing the dog's oppositional reflex in essence is teaching the dog that the leash is a communication tool. So as we talked about before, a dog's natural response to being on a leash is going to be to pull. Right. So if something's pulling them back, their natural response is going to want to be to break through that force pulling on them. So what our goal is we really want to teach the dog to, if I pull you back, it means to give me a certain response. And so that's what Mariano's talking about to develop with food. If I pull you to the left, it means go to the left. If I pull you to the right, if I pull you down, it means to go down. If I pull you up, it means to sit. And there's so many different variations of leash pressure in between. But the whole idea is to take the leash and instead of it just being a tool that we use to hold the dog back, we're actually using it as a communication tool so that our dogs learn, oh, hey, this leash is trying to tell me something. I should respond to the leash. And so this really, brings down this idea that training collars are abusive, or mean or aggressive or tough. They can be mean and aggressive if all you're doing is yanking the shit out of the dog. Right. So with proper leash pressure training, we start teaching dogs, especially at a young age, we start teaching them to actually enjoy the communication that they receive on a leash. So that way in the back of the dog's mind, the dog's not getting associating any pull or tug or gesture on the leash with something that he did wrong. Right. Instead, it's just kind of a reminder to continue a certain behavior or stop a certain behavior.
Yeah, I always like to tell people if you try to like bully a dog into listening, it doesn't quite work that way.
No,
so
definitely not.
It's and I've never really actually had to tell somebody, like because they were doing too much. It's just sometimes if somebody's afraid of a certain collar or another, I'm like, you guys understand it's it's not about like just kind of making this dog do exactly what you want as if you're like a warden and he's in jail. It's
right.
It's a matter of teaching the dog how to pay attention when it's appropriate. They can still have their fun when that's appropriate. And it's our job as humans to understand the difference, because ultimately I can definitely see, we try to be, of course, like reasonable and understanding. And like, I can see where people have a problem with certain collars. I get it. I wasn't always a dog trainer. I understand. But at the same time, just over time, it's hard to feel a negative, sort of way toward these collars when you just see them do so much good for dogs with like serious issues. And it's even harder to feel that sort of negative way when a dog who was trained on a certain collar gets so much better and therefore doesn't make a mistake that could like ruin his life.
Right. Ruin his life or ruin his training experience. Right. Like here is the criteria I would recommend. So the question here is, what is the best training collar for my dog? This is the criteria I want you guys to go over in your head. Okay. Whatever training collar you are using at the moment, you have to look at how well does it grab my dog's attention. Okay, how well does it grab my dog's attention in low-level distraction, medium-level distraction, and high-level distraction? Okay, and it is very, very possible you may have to use different tools for those different levels of distraction. I just want to throw that out there. Okay, so that's number one. The whole purpose of a training collar is to grab the dog's attention with the minimum amount of force. Remember that, with the minimum amount of force, so that way we can grab the dog's attention, give them feedback, or teach them something. Right. The point of a training collar is not to hurt the dog or correct the dog or piss the dog off or anything like that. That is actually the malpractice of training collars. Right. And there's been many times, even in my own career, where it's like, okay, I've started a dog on a collar that's been great for them, except for when they see a skateboard. Then I realize that collar pisses that dog off. Right. Or except for when the dog starts lunging at another dog, that collar actually pisses the dog off. So in those scenarios, we actually might have to convert to different training collars to not upset the dog or create more frustration in the dog in that circumstance. Right. So the whole point of a training collar is grab the dog's attention with the minimum amount of force. So that way we can lean and move closer towards more positive feedback and positive reinforcement, right? That is the goal here.
100%. And that should be the goal for all methodologies of training all the time. Be as positive as you can be. If you need to grab a dog's attention, then do. It's better, it's better your collar does it than like the other dog when he runs into it, or the car when he runs across the street. But as positive as possible should be the goal for all dog training all the time. So
thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend.
See you next time.